So I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Hanagan, who is a two-time champion jockey, a classic winning jockey with over 2,000 clear wins to his name. Paul, when we list off some of them accolades and numbers, that must be pretty special to look back on.
Yeah, it is, Joe. I had a fabulous career, really enjoyed it. Obviously in a career that long, there's a lot of ups and downs. But I'm immensely proud, and so is my family. I didn't start off with very much, and I keep telling the younger people coming into the game that if you work hard, it can be done. I was very proud.
And kind of getting involved in racing, how did you first sit on a horse, and where did you go from there to become a jockey?
Yeah, I was kind of a late burner, if you could say that. I was more, I was born and raised in Warrington, and it's predominantly football, rugby league place, and it was just a case of following my dad down to the local racing stables one day. My dad had a brief stint in racing. It didn't quite work out for him, but he's always had the passion and the love of horses, and I followed him down to a yard in Warrington called Terry Caldwell's, and I started off on the quieter horses when I was probably about 12 or 13, and that's quite late sometimes in racing. People get into it when they're much younger, but I started there, and as I say, on the quieter horses, and then through contacts of there, I was going to Malcolm Jefferson's yard in Malton, and from there I went to the British Racing School in Newmarket, and it was then, my first job in racing was back to Malcolm Jefferson. I actually wanted to be a jump jockey, believe it or not, and thankfully my weight stayed light. And then it was on to Richard Fahey's. So I had a lot of good support early on, which helped.
And as you alluded to earlier, there are plenty of ups and downs. We'll start with the ups, of course. A two-time champion jockey, that must have been one, some effort, and two, some achievement for you to win.
Yeah, I was champion apprentice in 2002, and I thought, wow, I knew how hard I worked to actually get to champion apprentice, but I just thought, why don't just push yourself a bit more? And obviously I had the backing of Richard Fahey, who was just really getting going, the same as my career. So we both flourished together, and the ball really started rolling in 2009, just before I was champion jockey. But it's kind of every young person, jockey, coming into racing. If you ask them, what would you love to be? It's champion jockey. So I worked very hard, but I was very, very proud.
And obviously the day-to-day effort of obviously riding kind of 5, 6, 7 days a week during them 2 years where you were champion jockey, how kind of tough was that on you mentally to keep going every day, or was kind of the end goal just too big to not try and do it?
I think a bit of both, Joe. I think it was probably mentally and physically draining. It really did take a lot out of me. I lost a lot of weight, but back then in 2010 and 2011, we still had 2 meetings a day. So you can imagine on a normal day was riding out at 7 o'clock in the morning, probably 5 or 6 lots, jumping in the car, or it could have been a light aircraft, and doing 2 meetings, and it really was a tough days. But looking back, I wouldn't change anything. I enjoyed it immensely. I think I was probably riding as best as I ever have, because you just get on the wagon and go with it, and you knew nothing different. But I must admit, looking back, some of the days that I was doing, I was thinking, how did I get through it? Some days I was having 13 rides a day, so I was very, very busy, but I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, and obviously that has been a recent change from the 2 meetings down to 1. Obviously, if you were advising jockeys now and the people who make them decisions, are you happy that 1 meeting is more than enough for the jockeys?
Yeah, I've been asked this a lot, and I'm still feel the same. That I still think the right thing is to be one meeting the day. You know, you've got to picture it being in the car, you know, going from one meter to the other. You've got 5 minutes to spare getting on the scales, and we did some pretty hairy stuff. And I just thought, you know, it's only a matter of time when there's going to be a bad accident. You know, the roads now are much busier. You probably would struggle to do 2 meetings unless you're flying. I know a few of the jockeys are still quite unhappy that they can't do it, but I think if they did it for a while maybe and kind of seen how it was, then they could have second thoughts. Yeah.
And some of your bigger days in the saddle, not many would come bigger than the Oaks and Tagroda. What a filly she was. Just give us a few kind of words about her and the day where you won the Oaks.
Yeah, very special day. You know, to win a classic, you know, it's a bit like being champion jockey. You know, it's one that you always kind of dream of, and what gets you into the game. And to win the Oaks was very special, not just for me, but for my family. Like being champion jockey, it was a very proud moment. The day itself, I remember it like yesterday. It was it just went like I dreamed it the night before. It really did. It just went like clockwork, and I wasn't overly confident, but I was confident she was going to go very close. She won the Pretty Polly very well, and then she went to get a feel of the track with Breakfast with the Stars at Epsom, and I rode around there, and she handled the track very well, which everyone knows it takes a lot of doing with the camber. So that gave me more confidence, gave her confidence. Sheikh Hamdan, I know, was looking forward to it. You know, with the great John Gosden, who put absolutely no pressure on me that day as well, which made a big difference. So it was just a day that I'll never forget. Yeah.
And yeah, John Gosden isn't a bad trainer to be riding for.
No, we had some many good years with the Handam job. He treated me very well, and just a good guy. You know, good guy to ride for. Great staff. I enjoyed riding out there as well. So yeah, it was a special day.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, there obviously is tremendous highs, but there's also tremendous lows with injury. In 2020, you fractured your vertebra. Just talk us through kind of how that happened and the consequences of how long you missed.
Yeah, so that day was probably one of the biggest downs in my career. And luckily I didn't have many, but that day was very serious because I fractured 3 vertebrae in my back, my T3, T4 and T6. And my T6 was because that was really wasn't a bad way. So what happened was jockey error. I clipped heels at Newcastle. Luckily the horse got up fine and was okay, but unfortunately I wasn't. And I kind of knew, having, you know, a few falls in my career, you know it's a bad one, you know, because obviously you try to get up and I couldn't get up. I couldn't really feel anything, which was very scary. And in the end, I was off the track for about 10 months. And it was a really tough time, you know, mentally as well.
Yeah, and obviously, what support did you have from the Injured Jockeys Fund along the way? Because whatever kind of happens in racing, the end result is the injured jockeys are always there for the jockeys. So kind of what support did you get through that time?
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky in this sport. You know, not only did I have great support from the Injured Jockeys Fund, you know, racing really comes together when someone's in need. And it was a bit extra tough for me because the pandemic hit just at that time, a few weeks after I got out of hospital. So it was very hard for me to get, you know, kind of the rehab and the things that are needed. But a big mention goes to Jack Berryhouse in Malton, and eventually when the real slackened, I was able to get in there. And I think if it wasn't for them and the Injured Jockeys Fund, I definitely wouldn't have made it back riding.
And obviously that was in 2020. Moving on to Beverley, just a year later, towards the back end of the season, you got on board Tis Marvellous in the 2021 Beverley Bullet, and you broke our track record. That must have been some feeling as you scorched clear up the Westward Hill.
Oh, it really was. And just fond memories, because we managed to win the race twice, and he was just a lovely horse to ride, and lovely owners, Clive Cox, who was very good to me through my career as well. So yeah, to win, it was always, obviously being at Richard's Fahey's for so long, it was just a race that I couldn't quite get, you know. I'd been trying for so long, and I think that was more relief as well, to actually win the race. So I'd been trying so long, so to actually win it at Beverley, you know, one of the courses that I've been racing for so long at, was very, very good.
And Beverley 5 furlongs is a different test to most horses and jockeys, essentially. What is it like to ride over the 5 furlongs at Beverley?
Beverley is not for the faint-hearted. I think experience sets well there, and obviously I had a lot of it, racing there so much. But it takes a bit of knowing, it really does, and they can kind of get racing a bit too quickly. So I think if you could just hold your nerve, I think is what I'm trying to say, and just bide your time, that it can help a lot. But I've had so many good days at Beverley, you know, obviously being a local track, being based in Malton, which was, I enjoyed a lot.
And obviously a year later with Tis Marvellous, you came back and won it for a second time. He was obviously kind of dazzling in the first one. In the second one, he really had to tough down and battle it out to beat Araceli, but that just showed the horse had kind of so many strings to its bow.
It really did, and you know, I was so chuffed for the horse and everyone involved, because like you say, you know, he won fairly easy first time, and second he really had to dig deep, and it really showed his character. You know, just a grand old horse that tried his best the whole time, and it was just a pleasure to play a part in a little bit of history there, you know. So it's never been done before, so it was great.
And obviously you had another special moment at Beverley over the 5 furlongs, this time with Macaron. Obviously it wasn't the biggest stage, with it being obviously a Class 1, but that was special, winning for the Rob Borough Syndicate. If you want to start off with, obviously it was for the Good Racing Company, how did that horse come into their ownership, and how did it go from there?
Yeah, so it really started off with Phil Hawthorne, who was the CEO of the Good Racing Company, got in touch with me just about being an ambassador for the Rob Borough Racing Club, and to support Rob and his family and MND, which sadly Rob has. And it was just a case of really starting off ambassador, doing as much as I could, because I was still riding. And I actually rode a horse called Macaron about 3 or 4 runs before Beverley, and obviously, you know, I know Craig Lidster, the trainer, very well, and I rode him one day at Carlisle, and I just really liked him, and I thought, you know what, this could just be perfect for the Rob Borough Racing Club. So I got in touch with Phil, explained him, and we got it all sorted, and I was feeling the pressure a little bit, because it was my say, and obviously the horse for the Rob Borough, and you know, that's how it happened. He eventually got to Beverley that day, and I can safely say it was one of the highlights of my career. It really was, and I've been blessed to have many, but him winning that day, like you say, it was, you know, wasn't a big racing day, wasn't a big meeting, but it was such a special day for him and his family to be there as well.
Yeah. And your relationship with the Rob Borough, obviously with you kind of being from Warrington, being a big rugby league fan, what was it like, obviously, watching him through his career at Leeds, and how proud do you feel that you could play a part in bringing him some happiness in what has been obviously a really tough few years for him?
It was huge, because I actually met Rob many years ago at a charity function, and you know, when you just meet someone, you just think, good guy, and his knowledge of racing took me back. So he's, you know, he's a big racing fan, he knows his stuff, and so to meet him, and then, you know, obviously it was very sad to find out he's got MND, so to do my bit as well was very special. But you know, I go back to saying that I raced so many times, you know, thousands of rides at Beverley over the years. I can safely say, when that won, the reception that the horse got, and we came back in from Beverley, I've never seen it that many times, but it was phenomenal. And I think the job that Sally and Beverley did that day to look after Rob and the family and make everything went perfect was huge, and it's something you'll never forget.
And the race itself, you said before the pressure was obviously on with you selecting that horse. How did the race itself go?
The race itself went really well, but you've hit the nail on the head, because we had a few hard luck stories with a few horses that sadly were no longer able to race. So we were just trying to get this first winner for Rob, and the day it came, it was a lot of relief. But especially him being there, I think was a bit more pressure on us. And you know, to see his son, his small son, lift the trophy on the podium at Beverley was just absolutely phenomenal.
And we were saying before off camera, it wasn't Mikel Barcelona in the Derby, but you did give a big punch of the air. It must have, like you said, just been a massive weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it was. You know, I just really enjoyed it, and I know, you know, there's not many times I punched the air, and I didn't really do it in the big races that I won, but it was just really, I knew how much it meant to everyone, you know, and as I say, him being there with the family was very special.
Yeah, and we caught a special moment of you getting off the horse and saying to Rob Bullet, "It's about time I pulled my finger out."
Yeah.
That was just such a special interaction between you two.
Yeah, it really was. And Barry McDermott, who's one of the ambassadors for the Rob Bullet Racing Club as well, you know, he'd like that, and that's Rob. You know, you can have that interaction with him. You can have, you know, a good fun and a bit of banter, and yeah, I just thought, yeah, it's about time really that we got the job done. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and as you said, it just was such a special day. I mean, there was 5, 6, 7 people deep cheering you in. Obviously, the horse, he's still in training at the yard. He's actually won since. Might we see him back on the Westwood in 2024?
Absolutely, yeah. So Macaron is not been long back of his holidays. He was a little bit like me, but probably he's not put on as much weight since I retired. So he looks fantastic. I'm really looking forward to him. He's a horse that reminds me of Rob Burrow. You know, Rob Burrow in his playing days was tough and fast, and you still see him now. Robbie Burrow may not be as fast, but he's as tough as a guy as I'd ever seen in my life. An absolute inspiration. And it just kind of rolls onto a bit Macaron. He's the most genuine horse, fast like Rob Burrow was when he was playing days, and he's just a pleasure to be around. Yeah.
And for you yourself, obviously, you're not long out of the saddle. What does the future hold for you?
So I'm very busy. That word retirement, I think, is nonsense, to be honest. And I think busy's good, because when you go from kind of 100 mile an hour to 0, can be very dangerous. So yeah, I'm very busy. I'm racing director for the Good Racing Company, and then obviously, you know, we've got the Rob Burrow Racing Club, and you know, it's fantastic. We raised over £200,000 for Rob Burrow and his family, so it was very special. We're just in the process now of getting private syndicates out, so we're going to have many horses and many good days racing with good people. And then obviously, you know, I'm assistant to Craig Lidster, and we go back a long way. Craig actually led me up on my first ever biggest winner, which is Wootton Bassett, which people will know now is one of the biggest stallion.
Quite popular.
He's very popular, very popular. So we go back a long way, and it was kind of always the idea to just basically help a friend out. And as I say, we go back a long way. So I'm assisting Craig, and some of the Good Racing Company horses, Syndic horses, are here at the stables. So I'm really enjoying it, and things are going well.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you again in the future.
Pleasure, Joe. Thank you.